Hello and welcome to the YYC Soccer Podcast. My name is Jason Kmet and my co-host is Scott Strasser. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Jason. I believe this is a milestone of sorts as this marks our 10th official episode, which is quite exciting. I think we put out some good content in the last 10 episodes, and I'm excited for what's to come in the next 10.
Yeah, we've got a lot of soccer ahead of us, I think. So let's segue into my favorite question for you every episode. If you're a new listener to the YYC Soccer Podcast, what is it all about?
Yeah, I think I have this blurb memorized now, but we focus on soccer in Calgary at the amateur, collegiate, and professional levels. We talk about the teams and players from the city's soccer community, from the grassroots and amateur leagues up to the university and professional level.
Yeah, and this week we have a featured interview, and it's with Shanice Alfred. She's from Airdrie, so it's not quite technically within the Calgary city limits, but she definitely has a lot of connections to Calgary. She played youth soccer here, and now she's currently playing for the Guyanese women's national team. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes, though. Let's start up with a review of the last couple matches for the Cavs. We had one really strong win and one frustrating loss. Let's start with that match against Ottawa, which was the 2-0 win.
Yeah, it feels like a while ago now. I think it was May 21st, and we're recording this on June 1st. But no, it was definitely Cavalry's best performance so far the 2023 season. They were in control right from the get-go, and it very much looked like the Cavalry of old. At least by their home performance standards, where they've been successful pretty much throughout their history. Cavalry quite noticeably tinkered with their tactics for this game. They moved Jose Escalante up to left wing instead of left back. They shifted Bradley Camden to left back, and they put Sergio Camargo as the starting attacking midfielder. And behind him, Eric Kobza got his first start as a professional. And he was partnered in the defensive central midfield position by Jesse Daly. And they had a really good partnership going all game. So I imagine that's going to continue. It looked like a 4-2-3-1. And I think these tactical changes clearly paid off because Cavalry was comfortable in possession right from the get-go. They were shifting the play. They were keeping the ball. They were probing Ottawa's net. They definitely controlled the midfield better than they had in previous games. And yeah, they really seemed to be enjoying themselves. Camargo in particular had a fantastic first half. He really looked like it was one of his best games in a Cavalry jersey, I believe. And he got a deserved goal midway through the first half after a corner kick that eventually was kind of half cleared to the top of the box, fell to him, and he kicked it in as he was falling to the ground. It was a good bit of redemption for Camargo as well, considering he'd skied a shot over the crossbar about 5 minutes before this. Although on that play, he did some really good dribbling to get into the box in the first place. But no, the whole time it seemed like Cavalry was going to win, which is interesting because they've typically struggled against Ottawa in the past. And they did get their insurance goal in the second half through Dan Klomp, who had like a goal line tap in after another set play was knocked into Ottawa's box and then headed across goal by Ali Musi towards Klomp. They also had another goal from Jose Escalante, really well taken volley, but that was called off for offside. But no, all in all, a really nice way for Cavalry to end what had been a frustrating run of consecutive draws, 5 in a row, and get their first win of the season.
That was definitely a high point so far in the season. And then we did have a bit of a low this past weekend when the team traveled to Toronto and lost 1-0. I was away. I only saw some highlights, but it sure looked like officiating was a big part of the story and definitely negatively affected the Cavs.
Yeah, officiating has been something the Cavalry camp has brought up a few times in post-game press conferences this season. They have gotten, the short end of the stick on some calls. I have to confess I also didn't watch this game, but just rewatched the highlights today before recording this, actually. And yeah, I mean, it was a 100-minute game, right? It had 8 minutes of added time after the second half. So that does tell you there were a lot of stoppages and probably some confrontations with the ref. But another frustrating road performance. Cavalry still hasn't won on the road yet this year. But no, it was another frustrating road performance. Cavalry still hasn't won on the road yet this year, and this was their first CPL loss. Watching the highlights, they did have some decent chances. Mickey Cantave hit the post. Eric Cobbs had a decent chance in the first half, but those were noticeably from outside of the box. So it did seem like Cavalry was having a tough time really penetrating York's defense and getting into the 18-yard box and causing Nico Giansopoulos some issues in York's net. In the second half, Charlie Trafford did have a close header in the second half. But overall, I mean, York is in quite the purple patch at the moment. They've won 4 straight. I thought they were going to be the CPL's cellar dwellers this season, and they were at the bottom of the table for a while, and now they're on this great run of form. They dominated Pacific and Halifax, and then a few days ago they got that late winner against Forge with like a outside of the box screamer. So no, York is in really good form at the moment, and it just shows that the CPL season has been unbelievably unpredictable so far.
Yeah, I would never have predicted that York, essentially the owners throwing the keys on the table and giving up. I guess maybe that Martin Nash has been able to utilize that the whole world is against us strategy or something. I don't know. Anyway, something's working over there, and you're right. They're on a roll right now. And besides the Cavs, Foothills WFC played their first UWS match this past weekend at Broadview. They came away with a 2-1 victory over LA. Scott, you were at the match. Any thoughts?
Yes, I arrived late and left early, but I was there for the bulk of this match. I wanted to take photos for the most part. I got there. It was already 1-0 for LA as they'd gotten an early goal. But you wouldn't have actually known that LA was leading if there wasn't a scoreboard there, because from what I could tell from the second I got there, Foothills seemed to be in control of the match. They didn't score in that first half, but the ball was in LA's half for the majority of it. And Foothills did have a few decent chances, particularly from set pieces and free kicks and a corner or two to tie it up. Ultimately, they didn't tie it up in the first half, but they did in the second. And it was a local player who got the goal, Foothills product Maya Jones, who plays for Memphis Tigers for her university soccer. Her goal was a tap-in with her torso on the goal line, but a really nice assist from Foothills right winger Grace Storty, who beat 2 or 3 players down the right wing before playing in her cross, which was perfectly aimed at Maya. Not long after, Maya Jones got her second goal with a nice finish from inside the box to give Foothills the 2-1 lead. She beat her mark and found the near post. I got a picture of that goal, which you can see on the YYC Soccer Twitter account. That was the last goal of the game. Foothills held on for the 2-1 win. So overall, a good result against a team traveling from California, who you'd anticipate to be a really strong team, just given the soccer culture of LA and California and the fact they can play it 12 months a year. But yeah, it was good. I hadn't been to a WFC game in a couple of seasons, so it was nice to be at a game.
I would agree with sort of the idea of you would expect an LA team to be really powerful, although I did look at some of the scores for some of the other games in the division. And if you remember in our previous podcast, Sarah Kinsner said that their real rival is the Santa Clarita, is it Heat? I think Santa Clarita team anyway. They destroyed the team they played last week. So I think it looks like in very early stages, at least, that the Santa Clarita and Foothills will probably be the top teams in that division. But yeah, it's a lot of season left yet. So one more topic I wanted to go on and talk about with the Calgary connection. Last weekend, Luton Town won promotion to the Premier League in England, and former Cav Urban Pebble hasn't been featured on Luton Town, but he is on the books there. Technically, he's on a Premier League squad, but I don't know how likely we're going to see him on our TVs playing in Premier League matches next year, but he is with a club that did get promoted to the big dance.
Yeah. And I mean, Arabim is a great striker. He did really well in the CPL for Cavalry when he was still, 17, 18 years old. But no, I think it might be a while before he's Premier League caliber. I imagine he'll go out on loan somewhere or maybe play with Luton Town's reserves. I believe he was playing with Grimsby last season.
He was with them for a bit, and I don't think that loan lasted the whole season. I think he was recalled at some point. But yeah, he did go out on loan to Grimsby for a little while.
To be on a Premier League team is phenomenal for however long that lasts. If he goes somewhere else, or if he goes out on loan, or if he's still playing with the reserves, it's still a great place to be. I know Luton Town, I've seen a lot of posts about their stadium, Kenilworth Road, and how I don't know if they'll actually be allowed to play in a stadium of that status. It's not really Premier League caliber, but it would be pretty funny to see a Premier League game there. That's for sure.
I think I read somewhere that they're expecting they're going to have to drop 50 million. I don't know if that was pounds or dollars or whatever it was. Anyway, 50 million over the summer to get the place to be minimally acceptable.
Well, they're in the Premier League, so I think they'll make that much from TV money or something like that. But no, I mean, it's a great story, no matter what you think. Like Luton Town was not that long ago, I think, in non-league. So yeah, it's neat that they've climbed the system to make it up to the Premier League. But anyway, we're not an English football podcast. But, interesting, and very cool that there's a Calgary connection to that.
So let's get to our interview with Shanice Alfred. She's an interesting Calgary area soccer story. And Scott, I know you've been following her career for a while.
Yeah, this is an instance where my day job kind of collides with this podcast. So through my day job with Airdrie's newspaper, I actually met Shanice about 4 years ago when she was still in high school in Airdrie. She had just signed her letter of intent to go play for MacEwan University in Edmonton. And she had also played with the Canadian women's youth setup at the U15 or U17 level. So I did a story about her for the paper back then. And then actually a few months ago, you informed me that she was playing for the Guyanese women's national team and had moved to Ontario to play for Seneca College. So I did a follow-up story on her career for the Airdrie City View, which got a little traction. And then we decided she'd be a good person to talk to for the podcast. So yeah, it was neat to catch up with her again.
Let's now run the interview with Shanice Alfred. I'd like to welcome Shanice Alfred to the podcast. Shanice grew up in Airdrie, and she is currently playing soccer for Seneca College in Ontario, and she is also with the Guyana women's national team. Welcome, Shanice, to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
For listeners who maybe don't know your backstory and your history, can you just give us a little bit of an idea of your background and your playing career thus far?
Yeah, for sure. At the age of 7, I started playing soccer for the Airdrie FC. Quickly started to realize I had further potential, and coaches were starting to call me elsewhere. So I moved to Calgary Blizzards, and I played there the rest of my youth career. And then once I graduated high school, I went to MacEwan University for 1 year. And then within that year, I also got picked up by the Guyanese soccer team, which is based here in Toronto and in Guyana for the Under-20 World Cup qualifiers. And then after that, they asked me after my tournament with them to move to Toronto so I could train with them year round. And then due to that, I transferred over to Seneca College. And at under-15 level, sorry, I forgot to mention this, I also played for the under-17 Team Canada team for a little while as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Shanice. And how exactly did the opportunity again come up to play for Guyana? Because I do remember you and I talking about your time with the Canada setup before.
So what had actually happened was I just left the Canada system, I would say, and it was at the same time of the Women's World Cup that was going on. And I was sitting there watching the teams, and I was in contact with my coach, who has also good contacts with clubs and teams around the world. And he's like, and we started talking about the actual World Cup that we were watching at the same time, and I had mentioned, he's like, you should be here. I don't see why you're not at the caliber to be here. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I think I should be here too. And he said, what's your background? I said, Guyanese and St. Lucian as well as Canadian. And so he made a few calls, and then I got a call later that day from the talent director at Guyana Women's Soccer. A few weeks later, they flew me out for a camp here in Toronto, and then I got selected for the under-20 team.
That's a good story on how it all developed. Now, I wanted to ask, you mentioned about your connections to St. Lucia and to Guyana. What was besides a family connection to Guyana, had you been there visiting previously, or what was your previous experience and sort of knowledge of where things were at? Like, was it a place you went back to visit family or that sort of thing?
Actually, I had no even idea that Guyana had a women's soccer team, right? So my dad was from Guyana. He moved to St. Lucia, and that's where I was born. He met my mom. I was born there. And so my family ties are all kind of based in St. Lucia, funny enough. I go back there every year to visit my dad and the rest of the family that's down there. In order to be eligible to play for a national team program, you have to have their background. Because my dad was born in Guyana, I was eligible to play for both Guyana and St. Lucia. And obviously, I recently got my citizenship here in Canada, so I was able to play for Canada at the time. Because of the levels of both the teams, Guyana is a little more advanced in the soccer world than St. Lucia is. And so my coach wanted to put me in the best position to succeed in my career. So he put me with Guyana over St. Lucia.
What has it been like to play for Guyana, Shanice? And what kind of differences have you noticed between maybe the soccer cultures in Canada versus Guyana, if you're going down there ever for training or games, or versus the fan atmosphere, for example? I noticed Guyana is technically in that South American continent, even though it is a member of CONCACAF.
Yeah. Where do I begin? It's an uphill struggle, I would say, right? We are a developing football nation. We don't have all the resources like, the big England or, Netherlands or even Canada would have, or the US. And so, funds are always a struggle, although FIFA does have some funding in place. We also have to look for external funding and sponsorships as well in order to get us, the training facilities, practices, gear, to the even competitions themselves, right, as well. And so it's been, just a lot of advocating for the women's side, and a lot of, patience I've come to learn. But other than that, the girls are great. We're looking at getting a new coaching staff in before our tournament coming up in September. I feel like we're in a good position to shock the world. That's where I would put Guyana at right now. In the way that we're trending upwards at the women's side, even our under-20s are coming along as well. And it's good to see. We're in a good position currently.
And as we were talking about before, there's a mix of players on the Guyanese team from the Toronto area as well as from Guyana proper, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So what's it like to kind of have that mix and that combination, and what is it like to get together and play together, train together, and get to know one another?
Yeah. So majority of our internationals are based in the GTA, which is why I was asked to move here, because it would make it easier, just kind of call everybody up on a weekend, be like, hey, if everyone's free, we have these time slots available for us to come down and train or even have a game or practice, which is very nice for us, kind of get to know each other up here before, we go to a major competition. But also we do go down a few weeks prior to our competition to Guyana, and we do introduce both the Guyanese players and the international Guyanese players, right? And so we do get a kind of sense of a bond and a playing style together for a few weeks before even we go to the major competition, which is nice as well. I do wish we kind of had more opportunities, but I'm aware of our financial status and it's just not feasible for us.
Sorry, which tournament are you going to be playing at in September that you mentioned?
Yeah, so it's a road to the Gold Cup. So it's kind of 3 tournaments encompassed in one. So it takes place in September, November, and September, October, November, and December. So it's kind of split up into 4 months. through qualifying through this, if we finish top 2, I believe, and we're in Group B. Through qualifying, we'd qualify for Olympic qualifiers, the next World Cup qualifiers. So not the New Zealand and Australia one coming up, but next year, and then also the Gold Cup as well.
That's really interesting, your schedule coming up. Now, I wanted to get back to something you mentioned about when you said about going down to Guyana for a few weeks before. So what was it like the first time you went down? Because you, as you said, you hadn't been there before. So what were your sort of first experiences and thoughts the first time you went down there? And I'm guessing as time's gone on, it's becoming more and more comfortable, familiar place. But what was it like right off the start?
Yeah, so off the start, I wanted to go there for soccer as much as I did to kind of learn the culture and see the island a little bit. So I think the first time I went down is trying to just distinguish, you're here for soccer, you're not here to kind of explore, right? Because I'm like, this is part of my heritage, kind of want to, check out, see what it has going on. But for the first time, it was a good experience. It was nice. I got to meet everybody. I got to meet other faces from the organization that I've only connected with over email previously. I got to see our facilities, how we get around. Our fans are amazing. When we go down the street in our bus, they're all, honking, waving, and then they pack the stadiums when we go play. And then they all wait for us after in the tunnel to kind of, get photos, get autographs. So it's a good atmosphere they have there. It's a good fan system and good support system as well.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. What would you say your favorite memory has been playing for Guyana thus far?
Favorite memory would definitely be when I scored my first goal as a Lady Jag. That would definitely be my favorite memory.
Okay, nice. Who was that against?
Dominica.
Okay.
And I think, Shanice, you've already alluded to this a little bit in the previous questions and answers, but what are some of the challenges that the women's national team faces from both an on and off the field perspective?
Just because of the size of our program, I do believe we struggle with a lot of financial issues. I feel like everybody's like coming out with financials and equal pay and everything, but we're still very underdeveloped, I would say, as a nation, as a football nation. And so it makes those challenges now even more of a issue moving forward. Although we're trying, fix what we have going on now, it makes it difficult because you want to obviously get your team together more, get everybody, seeing each other more. But because of the distance, because we have people coming from like the UK, Iceland, a whole bunch of us from Toronto, and everyone's kind of spread out over in Guyana as well. The feasibility for them to pay for all of us to get flights, to pay for the hotels, for everything is just more than we can currently ask for because we don't really have. So the chances that we do get for everybody to come down and kind of get together and play, we do cherish and we do take it very seriously, and we focus on our competition as well as getting to know each other and building those bonding skills. So I feel that's our main challenge, is that right there.
Well, I'd like to shift back to your college and club career in Canada, Shanice. So
Yep.
I know you've been playing for Seneca College in the GTA, and before that you played at MacEwan in Edmonton. So what has it been like to play for MacEwan versus Seneca? How does it compare, and what have you enjoyed most about it?
Yeah, so clearly MacEwan is youth sport, and I'm at Seneca College, right? So I'm obviously in the OCAA. So there's a difference there. MacEwan, I love MacEwan. Great coach, great team. MacEwan had, because of how spread out we were as, the youth sports system, you got a lot more travel days, a lot more fun with your teammates, hanging out, sleepovers, whatever.
Yeah.
But the schooling's, practically the same. I'm still in health sciences. I didn't really stagger much from that. I would say, yeah, just being in college compared to youth sport is definitely a difference. I think, youth sport gives you a lot of challenges and a lot of problems to deal with when you're on the field, like as in players and tactics. Great coaching staff and everyone there. And then, I came to college. It's the same. It is a step down from where I would like to be, but just considering, the short amount of time I had to transfer here to Ontario and then, find a place, find a school, find a coach to allow me to play. I already had teammates who were here on Seneca, so it was an easier transition if I went that way, right? So Seneca's, yeah, I love Seneca. I've never thought about moving up back to the university system with Seneca. I've just felt very comfortable, very free. My schooling's really hands-on too, which I liked, so I love it there.
Yeah, sounds like it's really worked out for you from a personal level. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you are back at Seneca right now taking some summer classes. Are you training right now with the Guyanese team with Seneca? Like, where are you playing this summer? Like, are you involved at all in any organized competitions per se?
Yeah. So throughout the summer, I do train in Seneca sporadically. So it's not like it's a set schedule. It's more like every month we have a couple chunks of the month where we go out and we do back-to-back training sessions and introduce the incoming class for next year of recruits. And then I also play with the League One reserves out here in Ontario with Electric City FC.
Okay.
And with the Guyana team, we do train sporadically. A couple got canceled last month, and then a few more should come up once we get closer to competition. So I'm kind of spread out everywhere, but the most consistent right now is the League One team with ECFC.
Is that out in Peterborough?
The reserve team is based out in Durham.
In Durham. Okay. All right. Yeah, a little closer. Nice.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Peterborough was too far for me to commit to. I said I can't do that.
I was wondering when you said Electric City because I know that's where Electric City's. I guess their men's team is.
Yeah, and the women's team. Yeah,
and the women's team too. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
but I'm from Mississauga out here, so I couldn't commit to Peterborough every couple days.
Yeah, of course. Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much for answering all our questions today, Shanice. I think a good place to end the interview off would be kind of looking ahead to the future. Like, what are your goals for the short term, and what are your longer term goals for your career in general?
Yeah, for sure. Short term is finish at a good position with ECFC. So clearly we want first, and we're going to be gunning for first until the season's over. So that's what I hope to come out with at the end of the season. For Seneca, it's my last season playing, unfortunately. I'm getting that age where I got to graduate. So I just want to rock this season. I want to leave it all on the pitch. Just thank my coaches and my school for, supporting me over the 4 years. So I want to leave it all out there for them. For a long-term goal, I would put our qualification tournament that we have coming up. I want to qualify for every single one of the three, which means the Olympics I want to qualify for. I want to qualify for the World Cup and for the Gold Cup. So those for sure are my goals.
Right on. Well, best of luck with those goals, Shanice, and thanks once again for answering our questions.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thanks for your time, Shanice. Appreciate it. Thanks again to Shanice for doing the interview. Any thoughts, Scott?
No, like I just said before we ran the interview, it was neat to catch up with her. And she's not the only Airdrie soccer success story, particularly at the women's level. Another one I think is a great story is McKenna Walker, a Blizzard alumna who is playing League One Alberta this summer. So yeah, it's cool to see some soccer success stories emerge out of a Calgary bedroom community like Airdrie.
So let's preview the next week in Calgary soccer. We'll start with Foothills WFC. They're currently on a road trip. They're playing Reno on Thursday evening, which is right about now as we're recording this. So by the time anyone hears this, that game will already be over. And then they travel to Arizona for a match on Saturday night.
Yeah, and then they'll be back at Broadview on Sunday, June 11th, and that will be a rematch against FC Arizona. Kickoff for that one is at 3 p.m. So far, I looked, and Arizona won their first game of the season as well, 4-1 against the Reno Vikings. So I'm guessing they'll be a pretty tough opponent. We'll have to see how they fare.
And on Saturday afternoon, the Cavs return to Spruce Meadows, and they play Forge, and it's always a classic rivalry matchup there.
Yeah, I'm disappointed to miss this game as I have a game of my own with my men's team at roughly the same time. That's too bad because you never want to miss a match between Forge and Cavalry. It is such a great CPL rivalry, still the best rivalry in the league, in my opinion. And both teams are coming off defeats against York, so both teams will be eager to put those setbacks behind them. I'll definitely want to tune in afterward on One Soccer.
Should be a good one. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. It seems like whenever these teams get together, I can't think of off the top of my head a really disappointing match between them. Maybe it doesn't always fall the Cavs' way, but the games are always entertaining.
Yeah, they're always entertaining. They're usually not very high scoring. I think Cavalry Forge tend to end, 1-0, 1-1, 2-1. They're usually chess matches, but there's always a bit of fireworks, whether it's players coming, to a head or, some really good back and forth or an amazing save or something along those lines. So I'm expecting a good game. I'm not expecting, a 4-3 or a 5-4 thriller, but if you like watching two evenly matched teams go at it for 90 minutes, I think this will be a good game for you to watch.
All right. Well, thank you for listening to the YYC Soccer Podcast. You can subscribe to this podcast by using all the usual podcasting platforms. Head over to our website at yycsoccer.com. You can find out more information there about how to subscribe or leave a question or comment. You can also follow us on Twitter at YYC Soccer 403. Thanks for listening.